Tee Higgins getting tagged is the rumor on the streets.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
Well. Here we are. Welcome back to the Wincinnati Pod. Sorry for that trash intro, but Tee Higgins is reported to being tagged. I want to talk to you because you're on the run, you're making moves, and you're doing your thing out here. Ace, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, bro. Yeah, you need to be more excited, bro. Come on, man. Like this is some good news here. The ops are in shambles right now. I got Browns fans like, hold on, what's going on with T? How are y'all able to keep him? What's going on?
Hey, bro, the saddest part about all of this is everybody in all these articles could have been stopped if they would have just listened. That nobody listened to Bengals fans, all these Bengals outlets, all of our beat writers, people like me and you. When we were in spaces, we told people this is exactly what was going to happen the following year, and then all throughout the season, Joe Burrow told everybody, and it never gets televised. And here we are, bro.
Yeah, I mean, like we had a conversation, and I give you the credit for this over anybody because when we were in spaces, you were telling people literally last year when certain people wanted to trade T and move on and stuff like that, and they were like, "Oh, it wouldn't make sense to double tag them." And you were the first person that said that. You came out and you said, you know, depending on what happens this season, you double tag T regardless. Whether you just don't let him leave for nothing. And I think another part of this, like the double tag, represents, and I think some people are going to think, oh, they're just franchising him just to franchise him. And no, it's to completely do what they kind of did last year, which is cut off any kind of contact or negotiation from the outside and try to focus on extending him. Now, this time, it's going to be even more of an emphasis on extending him because Joe Burrow has come out and said, we need to keep T. We need to keep, Jamar. And T has made these moves, these chess moves, to get us to this spot. And this is just another chess move that needs to happen because now you can't have a garbage team like the Browns come in and offer him $80 million a year and you have like no leverage. So this is a move to definitely help keep Tee Higgins a Bengal. What were your thoughts when you heard it come across?
I mean, to me, it was expected. If I'm being honest, I wish that the Bengals would just extend them and get it out the way in a perfect world, right? So there's going to be people that be like, well, you're not down the final stretch yet, and I'm with you, right? But the whole argument, I got to take it back to the beginning because you just said something very, very important. So yes, it is very highly, publicized on how I was incorrect on the Tee Higgins deal because of my conversations and all these different things that happened, right? The following week or the same day that I put that tweet out, people need to follow the timeline. T tweets out that he's got the best agent in the world. So like there are little small details that people leave out in that same time frame, right? Because there was something that happened. Not gonna go into that. We passed that. So then moving forward, when I would go to spaces and stuff, or when we would have conversations, at the time, you got to go back to last year around March, April of last year. People were very frustrated he didn't get the long-term deal done, understandably. But the Bengals, you had to understand the perspective of the Bengals. There are different times where the Bengals have gotten stuff wrong. I mean, right. They did get William Jackson III right? They did get Carl Lawson versus Trey Hendrickson. There are different ones. But a lot of times what people do is only talk about what the Bengals didn't do, which is fine. Not here to say that you shouldn't do that to the front office because they deserve to be cooked. But at the time, when Tee Higgins put out his trade request, remember who his agent is. He was never going to take the structure that the Bengals are going to do. So that was one thing that nobody knew. I also stated that at that time, remember, he had just came off the worst season of his career. And I don't know if any people played in the stock market or anything, or you invest. The worst time to go into those different things or whatever, or try to sell, is when a stock is at its lowest. You might see, if you have faith in that stock, you kind of build it up. And that was my message. And the reason why I think me and you bring it up is because it's such a shame. We were doing those spaces and we had real good dialogue, but then it would just be like a couple of people that push back on this whole idea that you can't do another tag because somehow it's not pro player, or they were against the first tag. They were saying just take what you can get. And it wasn't just spaces, it was a lot of Bengals fans, and a lot of Bengals fans felt like that even now. But what happened is Tee Higgins did play. Tee Higgins did ball out. And then once he did that, it changed everything. And now he is now the number one free agent in all of football. So now there's 700 people watching this. There's somebody in here right now that says there's no way that the Bengals are going to do right by him. They got to sign all these people. Who did you get that from? Because Jamar Chase is currently signed under contract. And now I get it. He probably wouldn't play on a 5-year option, but he is under contract. Trey Hendrickson is under contract and he wants an extension, right? Joe Burrow is under contract and he doesn't want an extension. So 3 out of the 4 entities were already signed to begin with. And so everybody was like, they're just going to fumble the whole thing. And they could still mess this up. But the one thing that I said, the one thing, and me and Goodberry on this Wincinnati pod, if y'all think that I'm BSing and you think that I just made this up, the reason why we had that pod, and it's a very important pod, if y'all want to go back and look and go check me. On that pod, I introduced to our fan base for the first time that I had seen people talking about a second tag or a tag and trade or a tag to control. When I told Goodberry that on the Cincinnati pod here, his antennas kind of went up. Was like, damn, like that's kind of crazy. Like nobody's really talking about that. I'm not saying I invented the concept, but for our fan base, it wasn't a thought process. But to me, it was common sense. You have to tag him because all of these people are now vying for his services. So now you have 8 different teams that are vying for his services. One thing, they don't want to bid on him in the open market because even a Browns team that will pay him $35, maybe even $40 million, they don't want to bid against 7 other teams, right? Even if you got all the most money in the world. So the dumbest thing, the stupidest thing you could do is let him walk for nothing. And so many reports on TV, so many people uneducated on the topic kept on saying he's just going to walk. And I'm like, that you're comparing apples to oranges if you bring up Jesse Bates and Zeitler. They were never the number one free agent in the National Football League. And Tee Higgins is a $30 million wide receiver versus a $15 million safety. They are not the same. Even though Jesse Bates is a great safety, they are not the same. They're both the mistake of letting Zeitler walk, the mistake of letting Bates walk is a big mistake. But however, if they were to let Tee Higgins just walk, it would have been the biggest mistake in franchise history because of the return that you could get for him, even if you don't get a negotiation done. So the tag for the second time, if you can't get the extension done immediately, has always been the play for me. And I've always said it, and it's on video, and it's on audio, and everything like that in conjunction with everything else. So I just think that you pointing that out, me saying that, you have to understand it's very different. Like you could talk about what the Bengals haven't done before, but this situation, you can't show me nobody in the history of the Bengals franchise that has ever had this level of a market that they just let walk. Bates and Tee Higgins is not the same.
Bates and Tee Higgins are not the same situation. And just going back into it, this is a situation that's a special circumstance. And I think most people that wanted to move on from T, that was their basis, right? Like, oh, well, you just can't get nothing for Tee Higgins, so that's it. That's not the only option. Like, we're talking about a receiver that's in his prime that has had top 10 potential, which very Bengals fans have said statements literally 2 or 3 years ago, Tee Higgins is a top 10 receiver. He's 27 years old. He's not 30. He's not, and that's him being a top 10 receiver playing with Jamar Chase. Like, that is not something that is just really out there that you can just let go. This is a passing league now. There are 31 other teams that would take Tee Higgins. There are 31 other teams. So having that asset and just assuming that you have to either trade it away or let it walk out the door, it's not the same thing. We saw teams last year, like you just said, you didn't invent the concept. We saw teams literally do it last year with tagging a player and possibly moving them, doing something to make sure that they get some sort
L'Jarius
of
Sneed.
value for them.
L'Jarius
L'Jarius
Sneed.
Sneed to the Titans is a prime example of that.
Chris Jones, when he was tagged, there were suitors. They came back and worked out an agreement.
Exactly. And then the other thing is this. You saw it literally play out this season what the Bengals offense looks like without Tee Higgins. With you having some guys in the wings that just clearly were not ready. And you saw, like, even with Jamar Chase, like, we already know he had a triple crown. He had an amazing season. But don't forget the slow start to the season because Tee Higgins was not there. Teams were double and triple teaming him. And for the Bengals to just really try to take the gamble on I can just replace this in the draft, for me was something that I just didn't agree with, because the fact that you have a top 10 talent like Tee Higgins, you're not just replacing that. And I love the draft and everything is cool. And some of the best GMs and people and fans and analysts don't get the draft 100% right because it's a gamble. You never know what's going to actually happen in the draft. There's situations where you end up with Marvin Jones and you end up on the good end and you look like a genius by letting Ocho Cinco walk and drafting a guy like Marvin Jones. And then sometimes you draft Cody Core and you look like an idiot and you got a Brandon LaFailure situation into the next one, to the next time you're looking at a receiver in the first round. And that is just something that I wasn't cool with. And I also felt like from the standpoint of the Bengals, how they made the playoffs, the Bengals challenged literally the argument that I had against them when we talk about Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase. Hey, you take the protection first and you put that over the receiver. Well, guess what? The Bengals had a situation where Joe Burrow's the most sacked quarterback in the league, no offensive line, and they made a Super Bowl. Why did they make the Super Bowl? Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins. That was literally their offense. They made it to the playoffs. Now, a little bit of Joe Mixon sprinkled in because a lot of people overlook how good Joe Mixon was that season. But the basis of their attack was literally Tee Higgins. Like, we talk a lot of people give the defense credit, and I give them credit too. That's fine. But do you remember, and we talked about this several times, do you remember the Kansas City Chiefs game? Do you know who was going off in that game? It was Tee Higgins.
Tee Higgins.
The game plan, because Jamar Chase went off for 266 yards against the Chiefs literally weeks before that, their priority was, hey, let's make sure that we double team Chase and don't let him beat us. And Tee Higgins ended up winning you the game in that situation.
Bro, go look at the Broncos game. I rewatched it earlier today. If y'all get time, we have no football going on right now. Go watch Tee Higgins in the last game against the Broncos. Mind you, this is a team that they're going up against with the defensive player of the year and Pat Surtain, right? So in that game, Yoshi does make a really tough defended catch. It's like one catch in there, whatever. But this is just insane that people watch him over and over again talk about like how he's going to be able to not be a factor or whatever. And it baffles my mind because when you watch him in the Broncos game, he goes crazy because they put the very best corner on Jamar Chase, and then Tee Higgins kills him on a slant, kills him in the back of the end zone. Tough low cat. Go watch it. It's 130 yards of masterpiece, 3 touchdown game in the last game of the season. And I thought it was like a microcosm. And it also was Joe Burrow stamping the whole thing like, hey, look, y'all could go draft whoever you want. You saw what happened to Jermaine Burton. I think as a consensus in a cumulative effort, we all agree that the Bengals draft wide receivers really well. We also agree that the Joe Burrow window is very short if you're factoring in injury concerns, the offensive line, all these different things. So it's about maximizing right now. Do you feel like you have enough time to go and develop another wide receiver and you have Super Bowl aspirations? Because mind you, the Bengals did just have another winning season, but that's not good enough for anybody. It's not going to be good enough for our fan base until the Bengals win a Super Bowl. So in that standpoint, you don't have time for variability. Somebody asked me, a Chargers fan asked me earlier today, he said, if y'all were to sign Tee Higgins, like, what are y'all going to do, like, for the defense and stuff? I'm like, everything. Because signing Tee Higgins makes it so I don't have to go out do whatever. All these other teams, The reason why they're photoshopping Tee Higgins in a Bengals jersey is because they know what's out there. The wide receiver market is weak. Chris Godwin coming off a major injury, and all of the top wide receivers is weak. Nobody wants to dabble in that wide receiver market and pay any of those guys top market. Or you could trade for a head case like Debo or a head case like DK, or Tyreek Hill. Nobody really wants to do that. How about the outstanding citizen that has come to Cincinnati since he came in here day one, done everything the right way, and then every time he balled out, has been one of the highest producing, highest yielding wide receivers in the entire NFL. That's the reason why you have 8+ teams vying for the services of Tee Higgins. And what they're trying to do is convince people that they want you to be in the same situation where you're looking for a wide receiver in the draft, or you're trying to figure out what nutcase or what nut job in the free agent market is going to give you Tee Higgins level production. You see what I'm saying? Like, people are trying to make their problems our problems. And if you sign Tee Higgins, you don't have those problems. You could literally go to the draft and say, forget wide receiver. We could go all defense. Every time that I hear a different scenario on supplementing Tee Higgins with something else, sure, give me the first round draft pick. I don't want a wide receiver with it. I'm going to go get me a defensive lineman. I'm going to go build me an Eagles front. I'm still not going to be the same potent offense. And then there's a guy that says, yeah, well, just draft this wide receiver. I hear you. I thought Jermaine Burton was going to be that guy. And I think he is that guy. But mentally, he's not that guy, right? So you don't know all of these different things. You've never seen him in the Bengals gym. That's variability. And in the window of Joe Burrow, you don't have time. Time is not your friend, Bengals fans. All of this stuff where we're talking about different ways to do everything that Joe Burrow is telling you not to do is time. And Joe Burrow recognizes the time. That's why he's on these shows telling people we need to get these guys signed, because time is something that anybody that knows me, my wife will tell y'all this, and I'm a psychopath. I do not play about time. It is the number one thing that will hurt you, and you'll be online like me telling people how good you were 3 years ago, right? And everybody's like, oh, you're an idiot. I'm like, man, I'm just vibing out. I like my team. Whatever. They're like, you idiot. That was 4 years ago, because you don't have time, brother. You got to go get it right now. You don't have time to be drafting, figuring out what's the wide receiver that's going to give you the same production. And then once we do that, now we got to go get the tight end too to make sure. Then we got to go get a now just let's tag, control the situations. If you're in the NFC or you're a bum team that thought you was going to get Tee Higgins, send us your best offer. We'll talk. The only other way that they could do this, y'all know this is non-exclusive. They could send us 2 first-round picks, and nobody's going to do that, right? So that's the other way around it. It'd be so like that to y'all team, send us 2 first. Y'all not going to do that. So now, shut up. Go get y'all first round and y'all package together. If you're the Patriots, send me Barmore in the first. We'll sit you to the side. We over here talking to Tee Higgins, who has the same agent as Jamar Chase that we told y'all on December 13th. But nobody on the main thing. Can somebody watching the show send a message to Ocho Cinco and tell him I got love for you, brother? But what you're telling our fan base, what Shannon that don't like us about Tee Higgins market and stuff like that, you getting bad information, brother. Come holler at the real. Come talk to the people that really know this cap stuff and know how much money the Bengals have. The Bengals have the opportunity to pay Tee Higgins $30 million if they wanted to. He will get top of the level wide receiver market. And then also, when he proposes that stuff on TV, he never factors in, you could go to another team and get paid more, but does it mean that you'll be as successful? Will you be playing with your friends? Are you in a good system? We've seen that systematically ruin a lot of wide receivers. Talk to us. Like, somebody get the memo to him, because right now we need all hands on deck, because, we get it out the mud. This is the Bengals. We're a mom and pop shop. And people like me and Ace will interview Didi King Kabbalah. We will interview AJ Green, and we will interview people that have interest in the conversation, and we will get that information to our fan base, and we won't be biased with that. We'll give you factual information in every step of the way. Of course, I want the Bengals to win, but that's your problem. That's not mine. And I just want people to take the information that we're giving them and stop treating it like, they're just Bengals fans. Like, no, we've been trying to tell y'all, we're trying to control the situation with the tag. Well, the Bengals are trying to control the situation. And the way you could do that is by tagging him. Now let's get into negotiations and let them knock that deal out.
Right. One thing that you said that I wanted to expand upon was the Eagles situation, right? Like, look at what the Eagles situation is. Look at where the money is invested. The money is invested on offense. You talk about AJ Brown, you talk about Jalen Hurts, you talk about Landon Dickerson, you talk about Maliata, the guard. Like, a lot of the big contracts for them are on offense. And like when you're sitting there saying, like, what are you going to do about the defense? What the Eagles did about the defense is they drafted it. They drafted they drafted Jalen Carter. They drafted all of these guys on defense. They got two guys in Quinyon Mitchell and what's my boy? Coop Cluck Coop Clucks DeJean.
Cooper
Like
DeJean and that Blankenship and all
doing
them.
their thing. Like, so those are things that you have to do when you invest heavily on the offensive side of things, especially with the quarterback situation, the two receivers. You have to hit on the defensive side of the draft, and this is just one of the hurdles in a long offseason of things that have to be done. Like, getting T at franchise is the
Okay, where
number
he
one
went.
thing that you got to do, and then you got to move towards Jamar Chase, you got to move towards Trey Hendrickson. But in order to have a chance of keeping all three of those guys, this is a move that has to be done. Like, there's no way around it. And I think if you're talking about what about the defense, look at how the roster is constructed. The roster has never been about the defense, to be honest with you. So right now, and there's not one person that you can trade T. Higgins for that's gonna voila fix your defense. Like, there's a lot of different holes over there. We talking about Jermaine Pratt requesting a trade and all of
Whoa.
that. We talking about Jermaine Pratt requesting a trade and stuff like that. Like, the Bengals are gonna have to figure it out on defense, and from the draft, that's the way that you have to build it because cornerbacks, edge rushers, they're gonna be expensive. You could probably invest on maybe one person on that defense, and maybe it's Trey Hendrickson, but everybody else is gonna have to get drafted, my boy. Like, it's gonna be some rookie contracts and some cheap stuff on that end because the Bengals were the number one passing attack in the league last year, and they won 9 games doing that. So if they get better on defense through the draft and through having some of these coaching changes, and they get a better offensive line, that's where they need to build upon. And I just think honestly that's what it is.
That's what it is. There's so many different ways. I'm very open to anybody with a legit plan on how to do it. But I think the simplest plan, the highest probability of success involves the guys that we currently have in the building for real. And I think Joe Burrow made it very clear. You can't come online or be in this realm and say, well, Joe Burrow's the man and he's the number one or whatever. And currently Joe Burrow's the franchise. And so if Burrow is saying this is what he wants, and if I came to your job and I said, Ace, I'm going to give you all the tools you need to succeed. What do you need to be the best that you could be? Right? If I feel like you're that important to the organization.
Right.
And I'm asking Joe Burrow that, and he's telling you. And so in a weird way, I don't think people look at it this angle a lot. But I think that signing T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson takes all the pressure off the front office and it puts it all on Joe Burrow and them. Because then they could say, well, we gave y'all what y'all wanted, right? Like, right. I know that a lot of people are like, well, they don't want to pay him. I think that it honestly, I don't know if people are looking at this angle. If you follow their spending habits and the salary cap and how in the percentage of, the Bengals should be spending, and I will be willing to bet they're gonna have to spend $120 million or more, depending on the cuts that they're going to do in cash. Once they make the cuts that they're about to do, the 4 or 5 guys that we already know, they're going to have close to $100 million in cap space as well, too. Now, what they choose to do with it, I'm not sure, right? But they have more than enough to go sign T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. Now, somebody came in, Cowboys came in and said, I'll give you Micah Parsons for Trey. Like, or the Panthers said, I'll give you Derek Brown and a first-round pick. Or Patriots came with Barmore, like, but nobody's talking like that I've seen out here. They're all just talking about like, yeah, we're gonna sign them and Bengals ain't gonna do nothing about it. And now they got their rude awakening today. It's like they're like, damn. So we gotta send something to them so that we could like get them. I'm like, yeah, like the Bengals they're not as stupid as everybody makes them seem, but I don't know why nobody listens to all of this stuff. So
Is it the greatest front office in the whole wide world? No. I hate the structures of their contract. I hate a lot of different things that they do. I also have another prediction. I don't think they do anything in this month of February. So it's going to be the next 2-3 weeks. It's just going to be a lot of speculating. And then when they tag or whatever, or it comes out official that it is a tag or whatever, or however that is going to be, they might do it immediately. I don't know. But however that happens, I think that there's going to be a lot of negotiations behind the scenes. And I think now, because of Rocky Arceneaux, Jamar Chase's agent, and T sharing the same agent, I think you can fuse a lot of the guarantees and the percentages together now, and it changes the conversation. The Trey Hendrickson one, I honestly think you give him like $20 million in cash, like $15 to $20 million in cash, and they got to spend the money. And that's a whole nother show, but I can show y'all why they have to spend the money. And it's just the model that they've been doing all along. And I pointed out all seasons, like the 23 all season, where they spent over $120 million. Like what it was Joe Burrow, it was Orlando Brown Jr., it was both the linebackers, it was Trey Hendrickson, it was, I'm forgetting somebody else too. It might have been Sam Hubbard. I don't know who, but they spent over $120 million there. So this concept that they can't do it, they can. I just think that Tee Higgins might make it so that the Bengals go to a lesser tier in free agency when it comes to defense. And I don't mind that. I'm not a big Milton Williams, pay him all this money, guarantee him $80-something million. I just, to me, I don't see it. I would rather draft that, and I would do it in the first round. I'm not interested, and I've said this on the show, I'm not interested in the Bengals paying the top of the line market for anybody in free agency at all, and unless it's one of our own. And here we are.
Yeah, for sure. That, just so you guys know, this show is powered by BETUS. Make sure you stop over there and get your bets in. They also have the casino going right now. Make sure you get your bets in over there. Ace and Zim are sponsored by BETUS. They do a great job over there. You got all kind of bets going on now, especially with the All-Star game just wrapping. They'll be having those NBA bets coming back up. But in this kind of time where there is no football in NBA, take advantage of that casino. Jump on some of that blackjack. Do what you want to do over there. They got you set up over there. So make sure you check out BETUS. And thanks to them again for sponsoring the show.
Speaking of sponsors, brother.
Wings and them CTVs. Midwest Best is the place to be for queuing wings. Midwest Best is the place to be for queuing wings. It's the AC to the Zim, M into the B's. Uno wings, Jeep on wings, and them CTVs. Midwest Best is the place to be for queuing wings. Midwest Best is the place to be for queuing wings. Say what up to Jordan Battle. We be going to battle. Intercepting balls like CTV did on Seattle. Putting 6 up on AZ. Juice gang amazing. Make sure you come get these wings, cause Zimby stay blazing. And T-Game be smooth as ice. Jamal making DBs fold. TV got big levels, and now you already know. It's so pretty for Uno wings. Cam got the new wings. We call them CTBs. Only at MBs. H to the Zim. M into the B's.
Shout out Midwest Best Barbecue. I know they say MB stay blazing, but I swear he's saying Zim stays blazing. By the way, Zim was blazing this show in regards to the Tee Higgins situation. But that's 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Midwest Best Barbecue. Stop in, get your wings. Let them know Ace and Zim sent you. They got the barbecue. They got it all. Make sure you check them out. They got the Grippo wings. They got the sour cream and onion wings. They got it all over there at Midwest Best Barbecue. G-Funk wings, Dillinators. Check them out.
Man, so I think that's the big news. I think we got that off, and we got a chance to talk, about that. I think we're going to have a lot of time this all season. In the next couple of weeks, I don't anticipate a lot of action going on with the front office. But there will be different alternate paths. I just spoke about some that I wish people would entertain from the outside world. If you're not a Bengals fan, start getting into what would your team be willing to send the Bengals in order to pull, and then you got to also say Tee Higgins also got to want to go to your team. See, a lot of people leave that part out too. Is like so L'Jarius Sneed, any of these are deals that are done under the table or behind the scenes or whatever. And once they get the parameters of those things straight, then we'll send them to you, and then y'all could go do whatever y'all want. But if y'all ain't got no offer like that, then the Bengals are going to have some time to go work out a deal with him. And in the time being, you could cry about it. I've seen a lot of them crying about it, like, what are they going to do about the defense? The Bengals are about to have $100 million in cap space. Like, they could do whatever the hell they really want. I don't want them being big players in the top of the free agency market for defense or whatever. I don't buy into that. Those guys normally don't pan out. But I mean, if somebody got like adequate compensation, the same thing I said a year ago, if y'all want to go look just to tickle your fancy or whatever, on this same network, me and Goodberry had the same conversation at the same time frame last year. It's a very good video with a great conversation where you get to hear two great football minds not arguing, but talking about different points. And I predicted that this situation would happen just like this after Tee Higgins did not sign the deal. Did you have anything else before we close this one out today?
Nah, man. Tee Higgins is a Bengal. Cry about it.
Cry about it.